rebonjour. Donc, on est en train d'arriver déjà sur la fin de cette journée riche en contenu, en informations, en connaissances scientifiques, en conseils pratiques aussi. Donc, je me permets de conclure sur une note finalement innovation, pour vous présenter deux entrepreneurs brillantes qui vont nous présenter toutes les deux leur start-up dans des domaines adjacents à la santé mentale et à l'alimentation sur des thèmes assez différents, que sont donc Keto Swiss et Tempera. So I'm going to switch to English to introduce Dr. Elena Gross. So I feel like we've been trying to navigate the French-English-Australian process all day. So merci and thank you for bearing with the different speakers on that note. So Dr. Elena Gross, I don't know if you want to come on stage, but so we're very happy to have you. After an MSc in neuroscience from the University of Oxford and a PhD in clinical research from the University of Basel, you founded Keto Swiss, whose lead product, the MigraKet, I think you brought some, is the first medical food for migraine, which you launched earlier in 2020, so in beginning of 24 in the US. And so it's a startup, I'm sure you'll tell us, but that you founded to bring side effect-free, efficient treatment to migraine after having struggled yourself to find an efficient treatment suffering from migraine yourself. So leveraging the role of metabolism in migraine and conducting the first clinical trial using exogenous ketone body salts. So I'd let you tell us all about that.
Thank you so much. Bonjour, je suis Elena et le français c'est trop dur pour moi, alors I will switch back to English. Let me see if this works. So you have described my background beautifully. I'm so happy to be part of this great event, and we've heard a lot about metabolism and in depression and mental health already. But let's see if I can switch slides. Oh, this one. Perfect. So as you said, I'm basically here today to tell you why this is no longer me. These are my attempts to illustrate what chronic migraine felt like, and diving into this whole field of brain health, I discovered more and more about metabolism. I'm here today to tell you why this person is today no longer me and how we can leverage this for other diseases, neuropsychiatric issues such as migraine. So what started as a personal problem really turned into a global mission. Fuel more brains to help reclaim lives. And really what we want to become at Keto Swiss, my startup, is the world's leading brain metabolism platform that preventatively focuses on improving brain metabolism. Now, the world we live in today puts a constant strain on our brain health, a constant strain of our mitochondrial functioning, our metabolism. And this is a lot via food, but not only. So all these blue lights creating oxidative stress via our skin, via our retina, all the toxins that have been introduced in the world, all the stressors, the multitasking, the never stopping, the bad sleeping, all of that actually leads to common pathways that can damage mitochondria. And one of these things is metabolism from a dietary perspective. But one problem that actually has a lot of damaged mitochondria, damaged metabolism, is migraine. And so that's what we're going to focus on initially. Migraine is actually the second biggest cause of disability and the first cause of disability among women under 50. So it's hugely prevalent. Now, I don't know if you've wondered that these diseases that have been so prevalent, if they can be malfunctions or accidents of nature, are the genes underlying something that affects 15% of the population, or in depression, still over 1 or 2% of the population? Is that an accident of nature? Is that predominantly genes gone bad? Probably not, right? So this is probably, if it's not a purely genetic phenomena, that means it's gene expression. It's the environment that has gone bad or is maladaptive for the genes we were born with, because something that affects 15% of the world's population is not an accident. It must have had some evolutionary advantage. So I'm rambling on. What if I told you that migraine could be as much a metabolic issue as a neurological or genetic one? The food we eat today and the way we live in today as Western humans leads to a starving brain, in very simple terms, right? And it's this energy deficit in the brain that could be at the very root cause of migraine and potentially other subgroups of neuropsychiatric diseases. Turns on that warning signal. Now, the good news is, if it's primarily the environment and metabolism, we can fix that. And that's what we aim to do with MigraCat, our first dietary management product for migraine. It is a medical food. What is a medical food? A medical food is a beautiful category that sits right between a supplement, which we've heard about, that is mainly for healthy people, and a drug that has often a lot of side effects, novel small molecules, but you can make disease claims and they're targeted as patients. A medical food needs to be tested, but it's safe ingredients only. And due to the safety of our ingredients of MigraCat, we fall into that category, and that allows us to adhere to two very important principles. First, do no harm, and second, let food be thy medicine. Important for me as an ex-patient. Some product attributes here. We only have bioactive ingredients. This is very important. So the methylated versions of B vitamins, all the human identical stuff, so not the plant-derived kind of versions that need to be enzymatically converted, but really the human identical versions of the molecules that we put in the product. No systemic side effects because everything is human identical. The only thing you can get from the minerals and so on is gastrointestinal distress. It's vegan, gluten-free, dairy-free, free of all common allergens. It's low carb and keto friendly. There's no sugar in there. And we just moved manufacturing to the US for our US launch. What's in the product? Now, this is going to take maybe a minute or two because what I have not heard much about yet is the ketone bodies. That hasn't been part of the previous presentations. Luckily, the presentation before has very nicely introduced a lot of the compounds or nutrients that are in MigraCat and why they're in there. I'm going to repeat it in a second. But the most important ingredient actually that makes up at least 50% of the formulation is what has been introduced. It was a molecule that is close to what has been introduced this morning, close to butyrate, a small chain fatty acid produced in the gut by healthy microbiota to fuel the brain. It's called beta-hydroxybutyrate. That's a ketone body. A ketone body is produced during fasting. We've heard that fasting can be beneficial. It's made by the liver in healthy people during fasting as an alternative energy source for the brain to glucose. It can actually take over 70% of the energy demand in the brain. Now, if we have patients that are insulin resistant because they have had a very bad diet, simply telling them to reduce carbs and then they will get better does not always work because their cells are starving. This makes you hungry. Now, this is a thing that you can add to a healthy diet during a transition that will fuel the cells, insulin independent. It uses completely different transport system. When they are transitioning away from a high-carb diet to feed the brain. If the brain is fed, you are less hungry. Overeating is not a willpower problem. It's an energy deficiency problem, and that's one of the things I had to learn myself. I'm eating all the time. Of course, there must be energy, but just because you give fuel, you give calories, doesn't mean that your cells, and especially your brain, is not starving. You can starve your brain while eating too many calories. It's also the type of fuels that matters. So we have ketone bodies as small chain fatty acids as a very effective alternative to glucose to fuel, especially the brain and sometimes the heart. Those are the organs that love that even better than glucose. It also is a very potent antioxidant. We've heard inflammation, oxidative stress is very relevant. So because there are a lot of scientists in the field, I'm going to quickly say two more sentences here. It directly inhibits the NLRP3 inflammasome, so it's very anti-inflammatory. And it also is a very potent antioxidant. Plus, when you burn ketone bodies inside of the mitochondria, it also creates less oxidative stress and requires less oxygen. Then we have B vitamins, which can be associated with depression as well in all the methylated form. This goes for folate. We have fat-soluble vitamins, A and D. We heard that even vitamin D we can be very deprived of as humans living in the Western world. We have magnesium, other electrolytes that are essential for energy production. There's antioxidants. Oxidative stress is the common denominator of all neuropsychiatric problems, I believe, and trace minerals that our soils are so deprived of that we don't really often think about, but that are essential for mitochondrial function. All right, so for the nerds or chemists around you that want to check whether we actually did use the human identical versions of the molecules, you can find the list here. But in very simple terms, what we're trying to do with MicroCat is we have that combination of an alternative, very effective energy source for the brains and the cells, combined with essential vitamins and antioxidants together to reduce oxidative burden, as well as hydration. Everybody understands that's the minerals. If you just drink water without minerals, you're not really hydrating yourself. In combination to fuel the brain in such a way that the warning signal doesn't have to be turned on anymore. This can be migraine, but depression, withdrawal symptoms is also a warning. If inflammation and energy deficiency is there, depression can be a symptom that, that this is happening. So that's what we do in terms of helping people reclaim lives. And I do want to add that no supplement, drug, medical food whatsoever will outdo the consequences of a bad diet and lifestyle. So this is to be seen as an additional tool to also help patients transition to a healthy lifestyle when they are already addicted to carbs and have really struggled to function on a daily basis, especially with depression. You have no energy, no motivation to do change whatsoever. This can be a tool to get people to a state where they have enough energy to say, okay, now I'm fueled enough, I have enough energy, I can skip that donut or whatever it might be. All right, so the concept behind MicroCat has been awarded several prizes, was recently published in Nature Neurology, so I'm not making all of this up, at least not a lot of it. It's patent-backed, and it seems to be efficacious in this newly defined metabolic migraine subgroup. That's something I want to say as well. Not all depression, as you know, is created equal. Not all migraine is created equal. There will be metabolic subtypes where this is most of the root cause, but there will also be other subtypes that are predominantly hormonal or maybe toxin related where this will not help. So this might help about 50% of patients. I know we're short on time, but what I want to say is when you look at the pathways that we know contribute to migraine, such as microbiome problems, as we've heard of in depression as well, digestive health, so the micronutrients that are essential for the brain are not actually getting there. That plays a role. Then we have increased inflammation, we have oxidative stress that is high, we have decreased glucose in the brain, we have decreased energy, ATP levels in the brain. This all turns the brain actual hyperexcitable, like in epilepsy. We have mitochondrial dysfunction, so the powerhouses aren't working well. We have problems with glucose transport, which is why, again, keto bodies can be a good idea. The ingredients of MicroCat have all been designed to basically help tackle these different mechanisms all at the same time, which is what pharma is not liking, and typical biotech companies are looking oddly at us that we try to do multi-pathway. But I think for prevention, that's exactly what we need, because somebody's migraine might be predominantly caused by this versus somebody else's by this. It's a very heterogeneous disease, as is mental health, I believe. So tackling as many disease pathways at the same time as we can is important. All right, so we did a clinical trial on the first version of MicroCat, where we found a 60% reduction in migraine frequency on top of placebo in responders, which we called metabolic migraine responders, and we found biomarkers that predicted who's responding and who isn't. These biomarkers were largely in the metabolic and inflammation space, with the best one being high-sensitive CRP, and we're trying to check whether this is the case in depression as well in our depression trial. In the small trial, the overall 20% reduction, I must say that over every patient was not significant, but that's typically 20% reduction over placebo, what you find in normal migraine trials as well. If anybody's interested, here's some references, but that's the migraine space. I'm not sure if the slides are distributed. I'll let you quickly take a picture. In summary, MicroCat is drug-free. It's a medical food, no systemic side effects. We've been trying to tackle a root cause rather than just the pain. Here it has over 30 high-quality bioactive ingredients as well. And it may be reduced as a replacement for daily multivitamin because there's a lot of stuff already in there. Comes in sachets to be taken twice a day to fuel the brain throughout the day and night. And it needs to be taken under medical supervision. Now, in addition to migraine, because of all the ingredients we have in there, it supports a lot of other things, such as energy, brain health, heart health, cognition, and mental performance. Immune health, skin health, eye health, bone health, fat metabolism. Sounds crazy, but if you think about it, everything your body does is dependent on the right amount of nutrients. If you don't have the right amount of nutrients, if you're inflamed, if your mitochondrial health is bad, you are spending more than if you were healthy. And maybe a healthy diet, and especially an unhealthy diet, might not cover what you need. Right, so I'm basically not cured, but migraine isn't an issue for me at all anymore, but I'm obviously biased, so I wanted to show you a few testimonials that I'm afraid we might not actually have time for, right?
Hi, my name is Pia. I'm here.
Maybe I'll do the other one.
I just want to get a little shout
You can
out.
find them on our website. I want to finish with the portfolio. You're just going to have to trust me that they say something good about MigraCat. So we are in the launch phase with MigraCat, but we want to become a platform technology company, right? So MigraCat, we've already launched, that's a migraine product, but on depression, we're 10 months into a clinical trial. Oh, how do I go back? Yeah, we're 10 months into a clinical trial, phase 2A, 60 patients in the US, where we also stratify according to CRP, so inflammatory levels. We have been developing a novel molecule that is very ketogenic, more ketogenic than the one we have, so it provides even more ketone bodies for the brain. That is in vitro stage, and we're now in the planning stage of doing a mild cognitive impairment trial. I know that's not really mental, but Alzheimer's is something that is a huge issue for society as well, and I think that the neuropsychiatric field, actually, it's all brain, so that distinction will probably vanish in the next decades or so. Yeah, so that's where we want to go, really moving the field forward with food for mood, or food for brain, I would say, for brain health. So I'm very glad that this initiative exists, that you have been putting so much work into moving this forward, and I think there's several paths to success. Diet is always one factor, but also giving patients a bit of a crutch they can hold on to, especially when they have a lack of motivation. This might be useful. So if you found that interesting, if you're maybe wanting to contribute to a clinical trial, or you're a practitioner who wants to see if this could be something for your patient or your patient yourself, then don't be shy, reach out to us. And many thanks for your attention. And if you want to try, I have a few samples with me. First come, first serve. Thank you.
Thank you, Elena. We'll be keeping questions for maybe the cocktail discussion just because we're running a bit short on time. Je repasse en français pour présenter cette fois Ariel Bove. Alors, je vais tenter une comparaison hasardeuse, mais si on peut dire que Elena a eu du mal à trouver chaussures à son pied en ce qui était, en matière de traitement contre la migraine, Ariel, tu me diras si je me trompe ou pas, mais on peut dire que tu as eu du mal au début à trouver alors liqueur ou peut-être jus à ton palais sur tout ce qui était alternative aux boissons alcoolisées. Et donc c'est comme ça, Ariel, qu'après des études brillantes, donc diplômée de Normale, d'HEC, pour n'en citer que quelques-unes, tu lâches un poste de plumeau au recteur de l'Académie de Paris pour développer des boissons sans alcool, avec l'ambition de faire des boissons sans alcool avec la même complexité aromatique que du vin, et ce, après une rencontre décisive avec le chef triplement étoilé Mauro Colagreco. Et je te laisse nous en dire un peu plus, et surtout, pour que vous restiez après, mais pour faire un petit teasing, nous faire déguster ces boissons juste après.
Merci beaucoup, car en effet, la bonne nouvelle avec laquelle cette intervention va commencer, c'est que je suis le dernier obstacle, mesdames et messieurs, entre vous et le cocktail. Tenez bon, je vous promets que ce sera bref et sans douleur. Alors, petit disclaimer également pour commencer. Comme Judith l'a évoqué, je ne suis pas médecin, je ne suis pas praticien, je ne suis même pas scientifique, puisque la seule science dont je peux me réclamer est une agrégation d'anglais, c'est-à-dire une science résolument molle. Donc, vous allez voir, j'aborde la question du sans-alcool avant tout d'un point de vue entrepreneurial, aussi d'un point de vue lifestyle. Et on a vu au cours des interventions précédentes qu'il était en réalité très important de soutenir les efforts des gens qui ont des maladies mentales dans la modification de leur régime, dans leur traitement. Et c'est plutôt dans cette espèce d'à côté de la vie quotidienne que je me situe avec Tempera. Je voudrais commencer avec un des paradoxes les plus criants de la culture française et même de la culture gastronomique en général, qui est que l'alcool et les boissons alcoolisées ont été, depuis très longtemps, associé à tous les moments de sociabilité qui font la dimension agréable de notre vie sociale. Quand vous sortez d'une très longue journée de boulot et que vous voulez cuisiner un plat sympa, vous vous servez un verre de vin et vous le buvez en même temps que vous cuisinez. Après une très longue semaine de boulot, vous vous dites que vous voulez retrouver vos amis. Qu'est-ce que vous faites? Vous allez boire un verre en terrasse. Vous êtes invité à dîner chez des amis. Vous voulez leur apporter quelque chose qui est un geste d'appréciation, un remerciement pour le repas qu'ils ont préparé et aussi parce qu'ils vous accueillent chez eux. Qu'est-ce que vous faites? Vous leur apportez une bouteille de vin. Tout ça, c'est très français, c'est même très mondial, c'est très ancré dans notre culture culinaire et notre rapport avec l'alcool de manière générale. Et on se rend compte que lorsqu'on se pose des questions sur l'impact de cette consommation d'alcool sur notre vie quotidienne, et notamment qu'on cherche à sortir un peu de la consommation alcoolisée qui fait partie de notre quotidien et pas seulement des grandes occasions, on est souvent stigmatisé d'une certaine manière. Oh, tu bois pas, t'es pas drôle, mais t'es malade. Oh, tu t'es disputé avec ta femme, elle voulait boire au resto et du coup c'est toi qui conduis pour rentrer à la maison, je le savais. Voilà, c'est toutes ces petites remarques qui font que faire le choix, que ce soit le temps d'un dîner, d'un mois ou d'une vie entière de ne pas boire d'alcool, c'est pas forcément très facile. Et souvent, on manque d'alternatives. On se retrouve avec cet horrible mocktail jus d'ananas grenadine à la table de toutes les brasseries parisiennes qui, on ne va pas se mentir, en matière de gastronomie, n'est pas forcément le meilleur choix possible. C'est pour ça qu'on a commencé à réfléchir à Tempera avec mon associé, qui, comme Judith l'a dit, est le chef triplement étoilé Mauro Colagreco, qui, lui, commence à réfléchir à la façon d'intégrer le sans-alcool dans cette culture gastronomique qu'on a développée, cette culture du partage, cette culture de la convivialité, et puis cette culture de la sophistication gastronomique. Comment est-ce qu'on fait pour proposer des choses qui ne sont pas de l'alcool, mais qui vous permettent quand même, au cours d'un dîner, de mettre votre nez dans le verre et de sentir des choses intéressantes, d'essayer de reconnaître des ingrédients, d'essayer de partager ces moments de découverte culinaire et gastronomique avec les gens que vous aimez et qui sont autour de vous. Pour cela, on travaille ce que j'appelle des boissons gastronomiques sans alcool, aussi impropres ou aussi novateur que puisse paraître ce terme, puisque notre particularité, c'est qu'on travaille des boissons sans alcool d'un niveau de sophistication équivalent à celui du vin, mais sans jamais utiliser ni de raisin dans les ingrédients, ni de procédé de désalcoolisation, dans l'idée de ne pas dénaturer un profil aromatique qui, en tout cas c'est ma conviction, doit avoir sa complexité et son raffinement juste par les ingrédients qu'on y a ajoutés et pas parce qu'on a retiré quelque chose. Fort bien, me direz-vous, mais du coup, s'il n'y a pas de raisin, qu'est-ce qu'il y a dans ces bouteilles? C'est quand même un peu étrange. Ça dépend de chaque recette. On en a 6, 2 pétillants et 4 tranquilles. Et vous avez à chaque fois un mélange de fleurs, fruits, plantes, épices qui va vous permettre de créer un bouquet aromatique, mais sur des marqueurs aromatiques qui n'auront évidemment rien à voir avec celui du vin. Et pour faire un petit teasing sur le cocktail qui nous attend juste après, je vous ai apporté ce soir 2 assemblages à goûter pour clôturer cette grande journée consacrée à Food4Mood. Une première référence pétillante qui s'appelle Eterna 2, qui est un assemblage fleurs de sureau, verveine et yerba maté. Vous allez voir avec beaucoup de fraîcheur, beaucoup de rondeur, une petite pointe de vivacité, qui est une préparation légèrement fermentée, comme on le ferait pour un vinaigre ou un kombucha, donc avec en plus un aspect probiotique qui peut être intéressant pour ceux d'entre vous qui ont travaillé cette thématique. Et puis un rouge léger, très surprenant dans les arômes, qui est lui un assemblage betterave, cranberry et poivre des dames, légèrement acidulé, beaucoup de fluidité, normalement assez désaltérant pour cette fin de journée. Voilà. Et si vous avez des questions, je serais ravie d'en parler avec vous autour d'un verre, parce qu'il est 18h, drinking time. Merci beaucoup.
Le mot de la fin avant qu'on puisse aller déguster et découvrir ces produits nouveaux et innovants. Pour vous remercier tous d'être venus, remercier beaucoup les orateurs de leur formidable contribution, remercier nos 2 start-upeuses qui ont été toutes les 2 dans leur domaine absolument formidable. Moi, j'ai été totalement séduite par les deux parcours et les deux produits, on va dire, ou les deux types de produits qui sont dans les deux cas, je crois, extrêmement prometteurs. Remercier DietSensor qui a été au cœur de toute cette journée et qui a fabriqué un produit qui, je suis sûre, va beaucoup aider le domaine et qui va continuer à progresser et à nous enrichir. Et puis remercier toute l'équipe de la Fondation FondaMental qui a fait un travail absolument remarquable parce que derrière cette journée, comme vous pouvez l'imaginer, il y a beaucoup de travail d'organisation et de mise en place. Et remercier notre modérateur qui a été là depuis le début, qui avait formidablement préparé cette journée sur un domaine qu'il ne connaissait pas du tout. Et donc on remercie beaucoup François de Closette de nous avoir accompagnés toute la journée. Et il ne nous reste plus qu'à continuer les discussions et les débats autour d'un verre. Un grand merci Ariel. Merci à vous.